I spent 4 years building that department from nothing. 4 years of 70-hour weeks, missed birthdays, and sacrificed relationships. And when the promotion I was promised finally came through, my boss gave it to a woman he'd been secretly dating for 3 months. A woman who didn't even work at our company until he hired her specifically for my position. Before I tell you this absolutely insane story, I need you to do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been passed over for a promotion you deserved. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this one ends. Let me take you back to where this all began. It was 2019, and I had just been hired as a junior project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. The company, which I'll call Pinnacle Marketing to protect the guilty, had about 200 employees, spread across 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. I still remember my first day walking through those glass doors. The office was all modern minimalism, exposed brick walls, those trendy Edison bulb light fixtures, and an open floor plan that the executives loved and everyone else secretly hated. You know the type. The kind of place that has a ping pong table in the break room but expects you to answer emails at midnight. But I was hungry. I was 28 years old, fresh out of a dead-end job at a failing startup, and I had something to prove. I threw myself into that position like my life depended on it. Within 6 months, I had streamlined our project management system, saving the company an estimated $40,000 annually. Within a year, I was handling our 3 biggest client accounts single-handedly. By year 2, I'd been promoted to senior project coordinator and was essentially running the day-to-day operations of the entire project management department. That's when Marcus entered the picture. Marcus Chen was brought in as the new director of operations in late 2020. At first, I actually liked the guy. He was charismatic, well-dressed, always wore these expensive Italian suits, and he had this way of making everyone feel like they were his best friend. He'd remember your kid's name, ask about your weekend plans, bring donuts on Fridays. But there was something beneath that polished exterior, something I wouldn't fully understand until much later. Marcus and I worked closely together for about 2 years. He relied on me heavily. I was his right hand, his go-to person whenever something needed to get done. He wasn't shy about acknowledging it, at least privately. In our one-on-one meetings, he'd tell me I was invaluable, that the department would fall apart without me. Then, in early 2023, our company announced they were creating a new position, Assistant Director of Operations. It was essentially a number 2 role to Marcus, with a significant salary bump and the kind of visibility that could catapult my career to the next level. I wanted that position more than I'd wanted anything in my professional life. Marcus called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon in February. I remember the gray winter light filtering through his floor-to-ceiling windows, the way his mahogany desk gleamed under the overhead lights. He gestured for me to sit in one of those uncomfortable modern chairs that looked like art installations. "Listen," he said, leaning back with that confident smile of his. "I want you to know that position has your name written all over it. You've earned this. I'm going to personally advocate for you with the executive team." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. After years of grinding, of proving myself over and over again, it was finally happening. "Boss," I said, "I won't let you down." He smiled at me. I'm looking back now, I should have noticed something off about that smile. I didn't quite reach his eyes. The next few months were a blur of interviews, presentations, and evaluations. I prepared a 40-page proposal outlining my vision for the department. I stayed late every night perfecting my interview responses. I even bought a new suit, a charcoal gray number that cost me nearly a week's salary. The final interview was in May. I walked out feeling like I'd crushed it. The executive panel seemed depressed, nodding along as I outlined my 5-year growth strategy. Marcus sat in the corner, giving me encouraging looks throughout. He waited. 2 weeks of agonizing silence. I was at my desk on a Friday afternoon when Marcus's assistant sent me a calendar invite. Promotion discussion. 9 a.m. I'm late. This was it. I barely slept that weekend. I kept imagining the moment, shaking hands with the CEO, seeing my name on that corner office door. I even called my mom to give her a heads up. She cried happy tears on the phone. Monday morning arrived. I put on my new suit, straightened my tie 3 times in the bathroom mirror, took the elevator up to the executive floor with my stomach doing backflips. When I walked into the conference room, something felt wrong immediately. Marcus was there, but so was Linda from HR, and both of them had this strange, uncomfortable energy. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. "Please, sit down," Linda said. I sat. "We appreciate everything you've contributed to this company," Marcus began. His voice sounded rehearsed, mechanical. But after careful consideration, the executive team has decided to go in a different direction for the assistant director position. The words hit me like a physical blow. Different direction? What different direction? I don't understand, I managed. "You said I had this. You told me—" "These decisions are complex," Linda cut in smoothly. "We've selected a candidate who we feel brings a fresh perspective to the role." "Who?" I asked. "Who did you select?" Marcus finally looked at me. "Her name is Rachel Simmons. She starts next week. Rachel Simmons. I'd never heard that name before. Not in 4 years at this company. Gathering my composure. Is she internal? I asked, already knowing the answer. She's joining us from outside the organization, Marcus said. She has relevant experience. Relevant experience. Those 2 words would haunt me for months. I walked out of that meeting in a daze. The rest of the day passed in a blur of sympathetic looks from coworkers and hollow condolences. I stayed at my desk until 7 p.m., too shocked to go home and face the reality of what had happened. The following Monday, Rachel Simmons arrived. She was about 30, blonde, polished in that Instagram influencer way, with a designer bag and shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She smiled a lot, but said very little of substance. I watched her that first week. She didn't seem to know basic industry terminology. In meetings, she'd defer almost every question to Marcus. Her relevant experience, as far as I could tell, consisted of a vague stint at a PR firm that no one had ever heard of. But what I noticed most, the way she looked at Marcus, and the way he looked at her. Investigation deepened. It was my coworker Janet who confirmed my suspicions. Janet had been at Pinnacle for 15 years and knew everything about everyone. I saw them together, she told me in the break room one afternoon. Last month, before she was even hired, they were at that Italian place on Michigan Avenue. And honey, they were not discussing business. My blood ran cold. Marcus had been dating Rachel. He'd created a position, my position, and handed it to his girlfriend. I started digging. I pulled up job posting records through our HR portal, something I had access to through my project management duties. What I found made my stomach turn. The job posting for assistant director had been created on March 15th, but according to the metadata, it had been edited on April 22nd, just 3 days before the final candidate interviews, to add specific qualifications. Qualifications that seemed tailored to match a very particular resume. A resume that mentioned a PR firm in Miami and executive relationship management. Rachel's resume. I documented everything. Screenshots of the posting history, notes from my conversations with Janet and other coworkers who had witnessed Marcus and Rachel together, a timeline of events that made the favoritism undeniable. I requested a meeting with HR, not with Winda, who had clearly been in on the whole thing, but with David Mitchell, the VP of Human Resources. David's office was on the top floor. Unlike the rest of the building's modern aesthetic, his space was traditional. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, diplomas covering the walls. He listened to my presentation with an unreadable expression. When I finished, there was a long silence. These are serious allegations, David said slowly. But I have to be honest with you. There's no explicit policy against workplace relationships, as long as they're disclosed to HR. But it wasn't disclosed, I protested. He created a position for his girlfriend and passed me over after promising me the role. David sighed. I understand you're upset, but promised is a strong word. Unless you have something in writing. I didn't have anything in writing. I bitterly realized it. Marcus had been too small for that. Every promise, every assurance had been verbal, behind closed doors.
The next few weeks were hell. Somehow Marcus found out about my HR complaint. The atmosphere turned frigid. Suddenly I was left out of meetings I'd been attending for years. My projects were reassigned. I'd walk into a room and conversations would stop. Then came the performance improvement plan. After 4 years of stellar reviews, I was suddenly failing to meet expectations. My communication was lacking, my attitude was problematic, my future at the company was uncertain. I knew what was happening. They were building a paper trail to fire me, but I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I contacted an employment attorney. I gathered every document I could access, performance reviews, emails praising my work, records of my contributions to the company. I also reached out to former coworkers who had left Pinnacle, and what I learned was shocking. This wasn't Marcus's first time. 3 years ago, at his previous company, a similar situation had occurred. A qualified internal candidate passed over for someone with a personal connection to Marcus. That candidate had sued, and the case had been quietly settled out of court. Armed with this information, I requested a meeting with the CEO directly. It was a risk, going over Marcus's head, over HR's head, straight to the top. But I had nothing left to lose. CEO Margaret Wu was a formidable woman in her 60s, known for building Pinnacle from a 3-person startup to a 200-employee powerhouse. She wore her silver hair and a sharp bob and had eyes that seemed to see right through you. I laid everything out for her. The manipulated job posting, the undisclosed relationship, the retaliation I'd faced. And Finally, Marcus's history at his previous company. When I finished, Margaret was quiet for a long time. She steepled her fingers and stared at the documents I'd spread across her desk. How long have you known about this? She asked finally. About 2 months, I admitted. I tried going through proper channels first. Margaret nodded slowly. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention directly. Please take the rest of the day off. Hear from us by end of week. Those 3 days were the longest of my life. I barely ate. I jumped every time my phone buzzed. My girlfriend, now my fiancée, had to practically force me to sleep. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Margaret's assistant, asking me to come in Monday morning. When I arrived, everything had changed. Marcus's corner office was empty, his nameplate removed from the door. Rachel's desk had been cleared out. And sitting in Margaret's office, waiting for me, was David from HR, looking considerably more humble than during our last conversation. Margaret had been terminated. So had Rachel. An investigation had revealed not only the nepotism, but also several instances of misused company funds. Expensive dinners and trips that Marcus had billed as business expenses. Here's the part I didn't see coming. Margaret offered me the assistant director position. Not just offered, practically insisted. You demonstrated more integrity in the past few months than Marcus showed in his entire career, she said. That's the kind of leadership this company needs. I accepted, of course. And as I sit in my corner office now, looking out at the Chicago skyline, I sometimes think about what could have happened if I had just accepted the injustice, if I had let them push me out quietly. But I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes the system is rigged against you. Sometimes the people in power will choose their own interest over what's right. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it. Document everything. Build your case. Find allies. Don't be afraid to go all the way to the top if you have to. My mom cried again when I called her with the news. Happy tears, just like she planned. It just took a little longer than we expected to get there. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more workplace drama stories every week. Have you ever experienced something like this? Been passed over for a promotion you deserved? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might be featured in our next video. Until next time, stay strong out there and never let anyone steal what you own.